over time, I realized that there was a lot less joy and happiness in my life, a lot more gray, I guess, just kind of this lack of color. I didn't look forward to my days. That was kind of what I saw the future as, was going to be this, intangible pain that never really went away, that I was kind of subjected to at various points, and that it was out of my control. And so there were various things that I did to try to give myself that control, because who likes to feel, like life is painful, suffering is happening to them. And so I engaged in self-harm and eating disorders, things that made me feel like I could manage what was happening. I had already started thinking about how nice it would be to not have to kind of carry this weight, carry this suffering, wake up every day and be upset that I was awake again. And so even before I attempted, there were moments in my journal where I would write, I think it must be nice to just kind of, close your eyes and not think that I'm going to have to face this another day, to make your own decision. Like a lot of the language that people use nowadays to talk about euthanasia and assisted suicide, it was language that I believed, this idea of having a choice. And eventually I decided I wanted to make that choice. So I had done work on the issue of euthanasia and assisted suicide before. And it was interesting because even before it got to the point of now we're talking about mental health issues, when we were just talking about physical pain, I still felt a camaraderie with the individuals who were explaining that their physical condition made life so intolerable that they wanted to end their lives. Like, I understood that. And so it felt, when people then were pushing for euthanasia and assisted suicide, even before expanding it to mental illness, it felt like a targeted attack. And I felt like the belief underlying this advance in society was one that threatened my existence, because ultimately euthanasia and assisted suicide puts forward this idea that if you are experiencing suffering, that maybe life isn't worth living anymore. But once we started talking about euthanasia and assisted suicide for those who have a mental health struggle as the only underlying condition, I think I became very angry, because now there were all these people who, in the name of compassion, were telling me, were agreeing with all the lies I had believed as a teenager. And all of it's framed, in this language of choice and this language of empowerment and bodily autonomy. And that sounds wonderful. And that, 16-year-old Lia loved that idea of, like, I get to make my own choices and I get to decide whether I want to be here. I didn't sign up for this life. And the nature of a mental health struggle is one that sabotages your survival instinct, undermines your ability to think clearly, perceive reality correctly. And so it's not actually a beautiful thing for people to present to me the ability to access this if I want it. I would have thanked you when I was 16, right? But that's because I was at the height of my struggle. But now that choice being presented to me is a weight, because it means that if I struggle again, the healthcare system isn't necessarily going to give me a message of hope. It might offer me euthanasia and assisted suicide as a solution to the suffering I'm facing. Hope is weighty, and it can be painful to think that, if I just make it past the next 6 months, maybe it'll get better. And then you get there, and sometimes there's another valley. Sometimes there's another period of darkness, right? There's no guarantees. But holding on to hope is what other people are meant to do when that person is suffering and their condition prevents them from being able to hold on to hope for themselves. The message we should be putting forward is one of hope, not of maybe depression is right. Maybe there isn't actually hope for you. Our job is to come around that person, be their advocate, and say, life really does get better. I never stopped believing in God, even when I struggled. I just stopped believing He was good. And I stopped believing He was good because I was experiencing suffering, and I couldn't fathom how God would have still chosen to make me, knowing that I'd face this, and on some level, I felt like He was culpable. Like, I stopped thinking of God as a perpetrator of this violence or suffering, or at least culpable in it, and realized that through every season, despite my anger, despite the awful things I would have said to him, God never abandoned me, and he was always there in empathizing with me suffering. When I was crying on the floor, he was there with me. When I was trying to end my life, he was there kind of keeping things going, keeping that fire burning. And so I am now at a point where, my faith is essential. I don't think I would still be able to be alive without that belief in God, without that belief that, God made my life for a reason.